Welcome to Inquiry into Self. So, at the current moment, there's a good amount of political discontent, and I'm seeing it as a great opportunity to know better this that we are. And to me, that is what I'm alive for, to know better what this is that I am, more important than anything else. So, how can I use these political situations? Well, one common complaint I hear is they're taking away freedom. And it can be on the right, there's certain freedoms they're protecting. It can be on the left, there's other freedoms they're protecting. Either way, there's an outcry that they're taking away freedom. And so, how can I use that as an opportunity? Say I'm agreeing that they shouldn't be taking away my freedom. How can I use that as an opportunity to better know this that we are? So if I find anywhere in me some part that says they shouldn't take away that freedom, I've got a perfect start for my inquiry. So I sit with that complaint. They shouldn't take away my freedom. And I look and see how there is this solidification around a knowing. I know best, right? That's definitely what's happened if I'm in that place. I know best. And I just feel, what does it feel like to believe with certainty that I know best? I feel so small. I feel so vulnerable. I feel so fragile. It's almost as though my existence depends upon this belief. Like, this must be. If it doesn't, chaos, mayhem, disaster, the world is falling apart, I'm in danger, whatever it is. When I know anything with that level of certainty, I am so fragile. Now, what if I didn't have that thought? What if I didn't know with certainty that I should have that freedom? Wow. What immediately happens is open space. What if I don't know? What if I don't know the destiny that's going to move humanity forward? What if I don't know each micro step? What if I don't know? And suddenly there's a dissolving. Suddenly there's space, there's possibility, there's curiosity. Simply in that moment of not knowing. Now, given that truth is this open, mysterious what is, and not a philosophy, which of those two experiences seems most aligned with truth? The not knowing. So I'm just noticing this, right? I'm not forcing myself into a not knowing. I'm just noticing that believing I must have this freedom makes me vulnerable and small, and not knowing whether or not I need to have that freedom right now creates openness, spaciousness, and curiosity. So now let's go into more turnarounds. So they should take away that freedom. They should take away that freedom. Well, I have looked and seen in many places when there wasn't freedom, what happened was a lot more grassroots organizations, a lot more networking, a lot more private alternatives, a whole lot of community pulling together often happens when freedoms get taken away. In fact, it's amazing how, as long as government could get pretty bad, but as long as it doesn't get too bad, it kind of gets allowed to do what it will. You can look at rules about particular chemicals, or smoking or whatever it is. And, as long as not too many people died, as long as the environment didn't get too hurt, things can just go and go. But then when it reaches a certain point, there's this pulling together. There's an awareness that comes. And then there's a change that is often rippling out in many other aspects. There's this natural drive for fullness of life. And when it gets threatened enough, it arises within us. So if the freedom gets taken away, what comes on the other side could be even better. And then you might say, well, people will die in the interim. Yeah, people do. People do. For everything, people have died. For everything. To keep freedoms, people have died. When we lose freedoms, people have died. From each of those chemicals, people have died. People die. Obviously, we do what we can to promote a condition where people can live and thrive. And the process of life includes death. So I do everything that I can. And sometimes in that last moment when we think, oh, these people are totally at risk, they're obviously going to die. In the moment, when it's coming to the decision point, things can change in the last moment. So we don't even know that. We really don't know if people will die. In the last moment, as it gets closer, things can change. Okay, so let's get even a little more personal. I take away freedom. That's another turnaround. I take away freedom. Well, and how do I take away freedom? In many of these cases, I'm not specifying a particular freedoms that this can be applied to, whichever one that you'd like to apply it to. In many cases, government money gets spent a certain way if the freedom is listed this way, and government money gets spent another way if the freedom is not allowed or is changed into a different way. And we can be talking about how information is handled. We can be talking about guns or abortion or what's taught in schools or what's allowed surgically at various ages for different gender situations. I mean, it just can go on and on. And when I advocate that the law supports my perspective on that freedom, I usually end up channeling government money a certain way. And there are other people who don't want government money channeled that way. So yes, indeed, I take away freedom. Because I take those people's money and channel it the way I want it and not the way they want it. Now, sometimes it's very hard to understand the people on the other side, to see what would it actually feel like if in their being it feels like a violation, a total violation of how their money is getting spent. And sometimes it's hard to be on that side. So that if something felt like an absolute violation of what you hold most dear, and your money gets spent towards it, that is not freedom. So yes, in advocating that it goes the way I want it to go, I take away other people's freedom. But even more personal, I take away my own freedom by believing that it should be this way right now. I am putting myself in this box. I am defining myself by a right and a wrong. That is taking away my freedom of being this mysterious unfolding that goes through its various stages. That is what I am. You know, sure, there were many times in my life when I would look back and say, that was not a smart choice. But as it turns out, I can say, I'm so glad I had every experience. It was important that I had the freedom to have each one of those experiences. And as that settles in and percolates and permeates through my being, I actually feel that same experience as humanity. It is important that we have each one of our experiences. It is our evolution together. So as I'm looking at this, what I'm noticing is each turnaround is bringing me back to this place of connection, this place of openness, this place of taking personal responsibility. I'm realizing that this event is teaching me, and it's teaching me that love is available, that freedom is here, regardless of the external situation. It's teaching me that my nature is expansive, that my nature is not defined in any box. Now, who cares what actually happens politically? Now I've gleaned the gold. I have remembered there's no circumstance needed for my freedom. My freedom is in not being tied to a thought. That is the only true freedom, the only freedom that matters. Of course, I'm going to help as much as I can in the rest of the world, but the freedom that matters is that I am not attached to a particular thought. And as it turns out, that's where I can be in a situation with someone else with a thought and be a door of openness. Freedom. It's what we are. No wonder we want it. But it doesn't have to come from the outside. It's what we are.